So here's just a disclaimer. This is an educational assignment. I am not a professional, and I will be asking you all kinds of questions about your life and different stages you have experienced. You do not need to answer anything that you don't want to. And also this video, it's only a video of myself. You cannot be seen, and your name will not be in anything that I write to my professor. Okay. How old are you?
56.
Okay. What gender do you identify as currently?
Female.
Okay. What is your sexual orientation?
Heterosexual.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
2, a brother and a sister.
Okay. Are they older or younger?
Older.
Okay. And
They,
sorry, you go.
they're 60 and 62.
Okay. Okay. Are both of your parents still alive?
No.
Neither.
Neither of them. Both of them have died.
Okay. How was your father like you in any way?
Let's see. So my dad was super curious. I would say curious.
Hmm.
He loved to sit at a table and talk and discuss life and, history and just sit at the table and talk for hours. He also liked to play a lot of games, like ping pong and cards and things like that. And trying to think what else. I would say he also was kind of a peacekeeper in the family. I probably play that role often in our family.
Okay. And how was your mother like you?
My mother is very warm. I would say that I get a little bit of warmth from her. Smiley. Hardworking. Likes family. But we also probably tend to say yes too much, or feel like if we're not doing something that everybody else is, we might be missing out. Compares things probably. And we probably look more alike, I would say.
Okay. Did you spend more time with either of them as a child?
It was different. My mom, when we were little, when I was kind of born age up to 8, I spent a lot of time with my mom. Both my parents worked, but then my dad lost his job when I was like maybe 6 or 7. And then my mom had cancer. And so my brother and sister were enough grades older that they were, off more with my dad, and I stayed home more with my mom. So I ended up spending a lot more time with my mom because I was little and they were more in middle school. And then her treatment lasted a really long time, a couple of years. So we didn't have a babysitter. So I would just go to do more stuff with her. But then after she survived, my dad still wasn't working. My mom went back to work and became a real estate agent. And so then I probably started spending more time with my dad just because he was around more then. So he tinkered a lot in his garage, like rebuilt old cars. He redid houses. was kind of like, a handyman type of guy. So often I would go on projects with him and paint and I don't know, whatever. Again, they didn't really know what to do with me. So I kind of would then go with him. At first it was my mom and then it was with him. So.
And how old were you when your mom was diagnosed with cancer?
8.
Okay. And then when did you kind of know that you guys were in the clear?
About 10.
Okay. And do you feel like
so my sister was already driving, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
she was kind of already out and about.
Mhm.
And she probably did more cooking or went to the store. And again, my brother and sister had a lot of learning differences. I did too, but they kind of went undiagnosed because I was probably the smiling one, the helper, okay, I'll go get that, I'll go do that. And I also spent a lot of time, my parents had best family friends, and I probably spent more time with the kids of those friends than my brother and sister did. So they had friends that, like belonged to a country club or had a home in Portola Valley or whatever. So I would kind of be more doing that, where my brother and sister kind of were just already doing their own thing.
Okay. So would you say that if someone asked if your parents were present during most of your childhood, would you say yes?
Yeah, I would say that there was one typically present. There was a period of time when I was little, before my mom was diagnosed, that I was a little bit of a latchkey kid. My mom was a teacher at the time before she went into real estate, and my dad had a job. And the school was right down the street. It was Palo Alto, the main streets of Palo Alto. So I just kind of would walk home. Actually, there was a candy lady that we'd go get candy from on the way home. Really odd thing to think about, taking candy from a stranger.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I think for sure we always had family dinners. My parents didn't have a ton of means, you know what I mean? Like, we weren't going out to dinner. We weren't like taking trips on planes. We weren't going on ski trips, like all that type of stuff I did I actually didn't fly, but I did ski trips and I did some of that stuff with other families. I did a lot of like camping. So yeah, they were present. I would say emotionally, not always, but who is?
Right. Okay. What responsibilities do you remember having at home when you were younger, like under the age of 15 or so?
Well, we were kind of in charge of our cell. Like, I was supposed to keep my room neat, which I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I helped in the yard. I'd mow the lawn. Somebody always had to set the table or do the dishes. Like, we traded off. We had a lot of animals. So I spent a lot of time like feeding the dog. We had rabbits and guinea pigs and dogs and cats. So somebody was always feeding them. We always had to clean up after. So, we always had to help out. Everybody was always helping out. I'm not sure that we had any one responsibility. I think it was just known that somebody cleaned up, somebody did the dishes. I don't think it felt necessarily unfair or somebody was doing one more than the other.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then as I got older, we all had to work. So I had a paper route when I was like maybe 12, with a friend, a local paper route. I babysat a lot. And for the neighbors, starting probably 12, 13. And then I started working in restaurants when I was 15. If we had a car, I crashed the car. So then I had to buy my own car.
Right.
So all of that was like, phones. We had one line, but I was always talking on the phone with my friends. So I wanted my own phone line. And so my parents were like, okay, well, you have to pay for it and pay for the bill. So I did, just because I worked. So that was like what I did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you feel like they were ever harsh on you in the process of getting a job or doing things on your own or having your own responsibilities?
No, I didn't know anything different.
Mhm.
I think I was probably put in a little bit of harm's way at times that I didn't, um, I think they were probably seeing me making money and buying things on my own and doing all that. I think sometimes there was some tricky situations. I had a lot of time on my own because my brother and sister were older. And I think it was a different generation. So I would just, ride my bike everywhere. And, but, we did some stuff that was probably not super safe, that had parents that maybe been checking in more I had a lot of injuries, I guess I will say that. So I had a lot of injuries, and I think a lot of that was just because I was pushing the envelope a lot.
Okay. Do you feel like your family environment, including your siblings, was supportive to your development when you were an adolescent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Good. Can you remember your childhood being difficult socially?
Yes and no. I mean, the school I went to, I love my teachers. I lived down the street. I had a few good friends, and then there was the mean kids. So there was a couple. I lived in a neighborhood. There was a lot of kids that were Jewish, and they all went to the same temple, and they had bar mitzvahs, and they were just a lot closer because they all did stuff together. And so sometimes I think because my brother and sister were older, and their siblings were closer in age, I don't know. Sometimes I think I had a little more boy in me. Like I also had a dad that didn't work and a mom that worked. So over time that became, it wasn't that it was a full issue, but it became different, which I didn't really realize, but that might have been some of it. Like I didn't have I didn't come home to like snacks, and like, oh, welcome home, that type of stuff. A lot of my friends had more traditional environments. So sometimes, perhaps I felt, like an outsider a little bit, I would say. And we had we had a school that had these kids with disabilities. So a lot of kids with Down syndrome and stuff. There were a guy with spina bifida and two with Down syndrome. They lived in our little neighborhood. And sometimes there were kids that were kind of mean to them. And I remember like not participating being mean, but remember not necessarily sticking up for what was right.
Okay.
So I witnessed some of that, but I would say that for the most part, it wasn't until I was in high school actually that some of the mean girl stuff became more of an issue.
Okay. And then when you were a teenager, what did you do for fun?
Like what age? What do you mean?
I'd say high school. Like, did you have hobbies, or were you kind of like, were you going out? Were you not going out? Were you with friends?
Well, I worked a lot.
Mhm.
I worked a lot at the restaurant. I worked at Chili's, and I worked at Benetton, and I worked at Nordstrom, and I worked at this other place that was like this women's clothing store. And I played a lot of soccer. So I played on a select soccer team. So it was really good that I had all those things because my mom was working more. My dad started a little business. He was gone more, and I had my own car, and I kind of grew out my hair and got my braces off and started going to a lot more parties and, making out with boys and stuff like that. So I would say my early adolescence, like middle school, I was very like focused on school and kind of had crushes, but was like I didn't do any drugs or drink or anything like that. And then when I got into high school, a friend of ours, older brother, kind of introduced us to drinking, and I did it from time to time, but I never so I still played soccer. I played soccer a lot. You know, it was a select team, and then I played at varsity at school, and I worked at Chili's on the weekends, and, you know, I'd go to friends' house. We'd listen to music. I was super into David Bowie and like the Violent Femmes, but I wasn't allowed to go to concerts. So my friends were going to concerts. I wasn't. And my parents were home at night. So anytime after 7, my parents were around. So I had a pretty strict curfew, and, you know, was home unless I was working. So then sometimes I would say I was working and I wasn't working.
Did you have a favorite spot to hang out?
No, I went to a couple different schools. So I actually started going to church actually in middle school. A lot of my friends were Jewish, and I went to a Mormon school that was run by Mormons, and I had friends that were Catholic. So I looked for a church. So I went to this Menlo Cross church that I found with my mom. My mom got really into church too, but my parents were not at all religious. But then when I wanted to go to church, they went to church. So I actually spent a lot of time doing a church group, and sometimes, mostly once a week, sometimes, and then I'd go to church on Sunday. So I go to parties on Saturday night, and then I go to church on Sunday, play soccer on Saturday, clean up, go to the parties, and like maybe work on Friday night, and, you know, Sunday afternoon, and one day a week. And then I'd go to my church group, and they would have, I did it because they had like ski trips, they had activities, they had cute boys. I'd go to this retreat center that they had in Santa Cruz, and I liked all their activities and community and stuff like that. But I transferred high schools 3 times, actually. The girls were really mean to me when I was a freshman. And because I had a lot of friends that were older, and like this older guy that was like the BMOC asked me out, and the girls called me up and said that, you know, I wasn't, you know, the senior boys were like they had more seniority, and that I better watch out. Like I got a lot of like threats from girls. And so then, and one actually ended up sleeping with my high school boyfriend when he went to college. He went to USC, she went to USC, and she slept with him. And that's the story that when I did ecstasy, I found out that he slept with people, and it was that girl. But so then I transferred I wanted to go away to school, actually to boarding school. And then I got scared because I actually didn't really want to go to boarding school. I just wanted something different. And so I actually almost went to, you know, that Fountain Valley school near Colorado Springs. One of Elizabeth's friends. I looked at that, and I looked at Ojai Valley, and Thatcher. And then I got in, and then I was like, got cold feet. So I went to Sacred Heart Catholic School that was all girls, and they're going boys the next year. And I was like, no, this sucks. And we knew the principal at Palo Alto High School. So typically you don't do, you know, you're on one side and you go to one high school and you don't go to the other. But I got an inner city transfer. So all my friends from soccer went to Pali. And so I was friends with all those girls were always really nice to me, but the other girls at the other school were not very nice to me. And so I transferred my junior year, and had a great time. So Palo Alto, like I ended up having a good time, you know, in high school, but I transferred a lot. So I have all these friends from all these different places. And unlike a Lakeside, where you start at 5th and then you're there till 20, you know what I mean? Like I switched around. So I had my church friends, and I had my soccer friends, and I had my, you know, I didn't really keep any friends except for one guy friend from Gunn, and then, which was the first high school, and then a couple friends from Sacred Heart, and then my Pali friends.
And do you feel like that was helpful for your adolescent development? Like, do you feel like you kind of got over some more social anxiety or anything like that because you had so many friends?
For sure. Yeah, I think that switching schools actually is a healthy thing. And switching environments, because if you're in an environment that's not toxic. However, I did kind of gain this, like, when things got hard, I left, like, I played piano, and then it started getting really hard, and then I quit, and then I did like choir and singing, and then it got harder, and then I quit, and then so I kind of have a little bit of I almost left USC. I got to USC, and a lot of the girls again where there was like some, it's just not what I thought it was going to be. And I had this whole financial aid package, and I wanted to go to Cal. My mom didn't let me because I switched schools so much in high school. So my parents were like, no, you need to stay and see it through. So there was some advantages of seeing that through, the stick-to-itness, but I think there's also advantages of, so it's a little bit different. Not a lot of people switched around that much.
Okay, and were there any other pivotal moments for you in high school?
Pivotal in what way?
Anything you can remember as like either a big friend breakup, or you quit a sport you really liked, or something happened with your siblings or your parents?
Let's see. Well, I had a boyfriend that was I met him when I was at Sacred Heart, and he was at the boarding school, and he lived out of the city. Like he lived in like a couple hours away, and he went to USC. So he was 2 years older than I was. So I think we kind of did an on-off thing that was challenging, I would say, because he was my first for everything. I did drugs with him. I had sex with him. Like, I didn't do any of that with, other people. So I had all these firsts with him. So then I felt like, and he was from a really, like, a family that was self-made, but also had a lot of money. So they had like, a fancy house, and he drove a Mustang, and he was a soccer player, and but he was kind of a Dennis the Menace a little bit. So I would say that was, there was a lot of cheating. He cheated on me a lot, and I thought he did, but he would say, no, I didn't. But it was until we did ecstasy my freshman year in college, when I went down there, that he said he did, and then we broke up. So there was a lot of on-off, and then we break up for a period of time, and then, I don't know. I would say I had a lot of freedoms because I had a lot of money, and my parents kind of like, I had a lot of my own money, and I had my own little 2002, my own car, and because I switched schools so much, I got really good at like figuring out stories to figure out how to get stuff, like get to do things. So like my sister went to Pomona, and I'd say, I'm going down and visiting her, but I really go down. I drive down for the weekend and stay at my boyfriend's fraternity house, the ATO. Yeah. So really smart things like that I would do, that I'm not sure was like, I think if my parents were paying a little more attention, might have been better. But I think they were dealing with their own stuff. And my mom died. I actually did see my grandmother die. That was like kind of, that was a little bit, I went to visit them, and they were resuscitating her, trying to resuscitate her. So that was a traumatic, and I crashed my car. I like had a really bad car accident, that the other car ended up like hitting me, and I spun around and hit a pole, and I had a really bad concussion. I'm sure it's why I get a lot of migraines, but then that car like ended up running into a house and caught a tree on fire. Like it's a really, yeah. So it's a pretty dramatic accident. let's see. And I had a guy that actually was one of my, before I started dating my boyfriend, there was another guy at the Woodside. I started sneaking boys like into my, because I had such an early curfew, and my parents were on the other side of the house and like upstairs. And so I changed rooms and would sneak friends or people into, or sneak out of my room. But then I like to go to parties, and I put my car was a stick shift. So I would push it down the street, have a friend come meet me, push the car down the street, and then start it so they wouldn't hear it.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah, I got really good at like how to, you know, that type of stuff. But I did then have a guy sneak into my room, and he tried to, you know, I would tried to sexually assault me, and I kicked him and told him he needed to get out of the house. And so that was a very scary, uncomfortable moment because I didn't tell anybody about it. And I felt like a little bit of shame, like that it was me letting him in my window. And he was like, well, you're telling me you can come in here. You know, it was like that, where like he made me feel like shit that I was telling him no.
Right. And how old were you when that happened?
15.
Oh my God. Did you
almost 16.
Oh my God.
Almost 16.
Him?
I knew him, and I had met Michael. So I knew him with a group of guys. We all met at this dance through it was like an exchange, they called him. So he went to the boys' school, Woodside Priory, and I went to Sacred Heart. And both of them now are co-ed, but at the time they weren't. And so we all met at a dance, and I met Michael there, and it was like a fall dance. And I can't remember the guy's name. It might have been Garth. And he drove a thing, those Volkswagen things. Every time I see one, I feel sick. But he had like Wayfarers. You just thought he was like cool. And kept asking me out. I was like, fine. And then we were like partying one night. I can't remember the details, but I do remember him coming into my room, sneaking in through the window, and then he just got really physical. And I was like, stop. And he was trying, and I was just like, fucking stop. But my parents didn't hear anything, and he left. But yeah, so.
Oh my God, that is absolutely horrible.
Yeah. We also I had an experience with we had boarders in our room because my parents didn't always have a lot of, you know, sometimes I think to meet financial needs, they would have people rent a room. Like my sister went away for a year to this like kind of boarding school thing. We all did it, but it was in Idaho, which is actually probably another pivotal moment where it was like this academy in Rockies in Idaho, and there was no like electricity or anything, and we all had to like learn how to survive, and you'd study like Epicureanism and read Ayn Rand and George Orwell, and then you'd like kill chickens for the livestock and bunnies and all. Anyway, so I did that. That was actually probably kind of a pivotal thing. On one hand, it gave me a lot of confidence, but on another hand, I was the youngest person that had ever done it, and I was too young to be doing that stuff. I think my parents were like, you know, my mom just like, it was a long summer with two working parents, you know. But my mom sometimes would have boarders. We had German exchange students and stuff for my brothers. But then she decided, oh, well, I'll rent out a room to a Stanford student. And there was like a creepy guy that I don't ever really know what happened, other than I had completely forgot about it. And my mom mentioned his name once when we were walking. She's like, I've never known you to hate anybody except for blah, 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 whatever name. And I had like this out of body experience. I felt like, oh my God, my body was like, it was like a very weird thing. And so then I started going, you know, you do a little trauma work around it. Right. So something happened, but I never really know what happened. So I never really investigated it entirely, other than the fact that it was, you know, by like probably violating in a way that It could have just been emotional. I don't know, but not a good guy. Like he was luring, like older and like, oh, come in here. And I was like, anyway, so yeah. But I was young. My sister hated him, and she was in middle school and would have nothing to do with him. And my brother was gone for the year. He was doing a year in Germany. So that's why the room was available. So
your sister was in middle school, so you were younger than middle school?
Yeah, my sister was my sister was in high school. Sorry. But I was like in 5th grade, 6th grade. My brother and sister were 5 and 6 years older, even though they were young for their grade. Mm-hmm. So I can't remember. My brother might have been 8th grade. And so I was like in 5th grade, something. No, he was in 9th grade. I was in 5th grade. So I was like in 5th grade.
So it kind of makes sense that if something did happen, you might not remember it.
For sure. Yeah. And I've never told my girls that, by the way, just FYI.
Okay. Yeah.
Not that it's a big deal, but I just don't feel like it's like, yeah.
It's not something for you to tell.
Yeah.
None of this is, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I guess moving on, do you feel like if you could go back to any age and just, I guess not replace the years that you had, but go back to any age and at least just be able to experience some of it, do you know what age that would be?
To experience, to relive it or redo it?
Relive it because it was exciting or fun.
Yeah, I really loved like from the time I could ride a bike. So I guess I was like, I started riding a bike when I was 4, but when I started being able to ride a bike, like I think kindergarten, 1st grade, my parents would literally let me, I'd bike to the neighboring town. I'd cross over this street that was kind of a busy street. Mm-hmm. And go down this path, and there was this place called Candyland. And I'd meet my friend Wendy, who lived in another town, and we would get candy. We'd take all the change from our dads. We'd offer to do laundry to our fathers. Then we'd take all the change. And then we would take the change. We'd steal the change. And then we'd go buy candy. And then we'd cross over this creek, and we lived in this like amazing, Palo Alto at the time was not developed. So there's lots and lots of land where we lived. It was kind of not far from Stanford. Mm-hmm. And so she and I, Wendy, my friend, had like a really great many years of just like fun exploring as little kids, like just with our bikes, and we'd look at frogs and we'd dissect worms, and we'd go to the creek and we'd look for tadpoles, and we'd run down these storm drain tunnels and like freak each other out. And her parents belonged to the country club. We'd go up there, we'd go swimming, we'd eat off their snack bar, get, creamsicles. Right. And they let me join the swim team, even though I wasn't a member. So I did a swim team once with her, and we did a lot of camping during that time with our families. Like her brother was my brother's age. And so we did a lot of camping. I would say that was before my mom got sick. So the times like 4 to 8, mm-hmm. that time before my mom got sick, we did a lot of we were just out in the element, and making forts. Like our parents were pretty creative, and her dad was a very famous physicist. Mm-hmm. He started SLAC, Stanford Linear Accelerator. So the conversations were really they didn't baby us, Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of very stimulating conversations. We'd go up to Tahoe, our cousins had a place up in Fawn Leaf Lake. We'd go crawdad fishing and swim in the lake and hike. We had a lot of freedom. But then we'd come home and play cards and be so tired that we'd just sleep through the night. And often I would wet my bed because I was a bedwetter. I wet my bed. I was so tired. I was like, Sid, I just so tired.
Okay. Moving kind of older, do you, I know that you have a husband and you have two girls. What do you feel physically the same that you did 10 years ago?
Well, right now I have a little bit of a migraine, so, but I guess 10 years ago I did too. 10 years ago.
Okay.
Let's see. I would say, although I look in the mirror and I don't. Like, I feel like I'm actually in the last 8 to right now, the last year has been a shit show for our family, as you know. So I haven't been on my game, but when I was teaching, like my 45 to 50, once I started teaching cycle and I was working part-time, even though there was a lot of chaos behind the scenes, I felt like physically I was, and mentally, like doing a lot. I would say the last year, I just got worn down from everything that happened. So that right now, this particular year, I don't feel like I'm necessarily how I have felt before, like I was stronger for sure before the pipe burst and Bill's Achilles and the near-death experience and everything, all that shit.
Okay, and then how do you feel about growing older, and what is the hardest thing about that?
Well, my dad died from early onset Alzheimer's, so he was physically capable and looked great, but he lost his mind. And my mom didn't lose her mind, but she started losing her body. So I've seen both. And I would say that the mind, I worry. My mom had BRCA2, I don't have BRCA2. I guess there's a little bit of, let's see, what's my worry? Concern. I want to make sure that I'm making it. I want to make sure that I continue. Like, I don't want time to pass and not feel like I've made an impact somehow for the greater good. Whatever that is. Like, it could be my kids being fully independent. They're not fully independent yet, like it could be, I know I've helped my family and family of origin, but I feel like I left my career to move up to Seattle, and I was on a very different track until I met Bill, just independence wise, because I kind of had a hard start because I started so early. So I don't want to in like 20 years feel like resentment around not having lived a life that I feel meaningful. And it could be playing pickleball and tennis. It's just right now I've been caregiving so much that I got to shift the focus and figure out kind of what is next for me.
Do you feel like you have your goals have changed over the years? Like when you were just getting out of college, were you kind of thinking about making an impact on the world like you are now? Did you think you were going to have a family and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I did, because I was a church goer. I did like mission trips and stuff. And I even in college, I worked at the Good Shepherd's home and took care of this. Like, I had this really sweet gal that I had her mom was there, but her dad was a drug addict. So it's like an in-between house. Like, it's not quite like Mary's Place, but it's kind of that kind of concept, right? So I did a lot of volunteer. And then I think as I've gotten, it's really just been within the last 5 years. Like I was on the advisory board down at USC and one at Seattle U, and I just sort of lost my sense of self the last 5 years. So I would say that what was the question again about?
Kind of like goals changing.
Goals changing. Yeah, I think I lost my sense of self. So I used to have work. I think provides like a routine. You know, it's like, and then when there's this concept like hire. You want to work with busy people because they get more done. Like I feel like when I had more to do, I got more accomplished and I felt better about it, even though like I would help out getting clothes for Epiphany or I go make dinners, you know, with the girls. So I think my goals have changed, certainly being on my own and then having kids, that was the focus. And then I put probably a lot of attention on my family of origin just because my siblings didn't do anything. So there was a lot of pressure on that. So I think I've lost my goal, like the last 6 years with Bill's dad, John, you know, I would say Bill, my significant other, getting depressed over his sister's divorce and his dad's death. And then he's handling all of the managing stuff, or like he's so focused on his family of origin because they rely so much on him for a lot of this stuff with his mom and estate stuff. And so that I think led to some of his health stuff. And then so I don't feel like I've had any goals recently. So I would say that they certainly changed. And I probably got to get my shit together, you know? Kind of what I told Helen when she said she couldn't go down the mountain, was freaking out. Like, you know, in some valley, like she's perfectly good skier. I was like, it's icy. And like, we took off her skis and we tried to walk. We tried to do this. She couldn't do it. I was like, fine, you can do it. I'm skiing down. And then, you know, she skis past me. She's like, that wasn't a very nice mommy. But I was like, you got to get your shit together. You know, I feel like I need to tell myself the same thing. Like Bill bought the place in Palm Springs, but like that's Bill's, but then I'm dealing with it. It's not really, your mom loves all that stuff. I'm not that person. So I got to find what is my thing, you know?
Right. Do you feel like the activities that you do now fill that space enough?
No.
Okay. Do you have any idea?
I mean, it feels community. It's active. Like I play tennis, pickleball. I work out from time to time. Bill and I try to make him play backgammon. You know, I'm a gamer. I love the gaming. But I'm not quite ready to sit for 4 hours and play bridge. And golf feels too slow for me. I used to be a skier, but the injuries are too high. So I'm just in that transitional zone, you know? And looking at wrinkles is harder now. I would say, you know, I wish that when I was in college, I appreciated my skin, and, you know, I don't think I felt pretty then, and now I don't feel pretty. You know what I mean? There's like a talking to oneself, like just enjoy where you are.
Right. Do you feel like there's anything, so you kind of want to find your niche again? Do you feel like that might just be work?
Yeah, I've been trying to think if I'm going to go back to school or is it work, but I'm older now. So there's an age thing. And then every time I've like gone to start work again, something's happened. Like I talked to this woman and this company that I was looking at, and she was like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. And then like, that was, let's talk in the new year. And then the flood happened and Bill's Achilles and and then I called her in May after Helen's graduation. I was like, I'm so sorry. I totally dropped the ball. It's not like me. And then she's like, great, let's talk again in June. And then Bill had the near death. Like I feel, and now the company has full funding. They're like they're beyond me now. You know, had I gotten in a year ago or 10 months ago, it would have been different. But so there's a little bit of missed opportunities where I see it, but then I don't know if I'm really want to be all in like that. Like I'd love project work, I think. But yeah, I do think work with some capacity. It could be volunteer, but I like making money. So yeah.
Okay. Are there any things that when your two girls were growing up that you tried to do differently because of how your parents treated you when you were little?
Sure. I think I mean, I gave them I probably, I mean, there are some things I did that were the same, right? I let them make forts and, have houses in the laurel bushes, and we were active and wasn't afraid to be muddy or messy or whatever. But what I did do more was skiing. My family, I had tennis. We joined a country club. Like I didn't necessarily want to join the country club. Bill did, but I tried to be around more because my family wasn't around more. And I'm not sure if that was, but I also tried to work, but they didn't even really know they didn't know I was working. They thought I was like a spin instructor because I'd work when they were in school,
Right.
So they didn't really know what I did. So it was almost like, wasn't really worth it.
Mhm.
I mean, it was, but I was still making $80,000 a year working 20 hours a week. It wasn't insignificant, but they didn't even know what I did. Every now and then I'd go out of town for meetings and they would be like, oh, great, she's going out of town. We get to hang out with dad and have more fun because my mom's checking in on our bedtime and wondering if we're on our phones, So, and I try to be around more, I was more traditional, but I don't know if I didn't mean that. I never thought that I wasn't. I guess when I had kids, I didn't ever think that I wouldn't work,
Right.
So that just happened because we moved to another city and I left my job at HP that I've been for 8 years and had a lot of tenure. And then I thought, oh, no problem, I'll go back into it. And my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and I was helping him. And then, so yeah.
Right. Okay, we only have
I'm
8
going into the RH outlet now, just to let you know.
Okay, we only have 8 more minutes, so
Okay.
holding on. Okay. Do you feel like your kids grew up with the same values that you had growing up?
Yeah, I do. I think the only thing that is different is that we had more money. So I'm not sure that they had the value of what hard earned, working. I think they said I focus so much on money. You're always worried about money, and I'm like, it's not really the money. It's more of the feeling good about what you're doing to make money, and then that what you're creating for yourself feels like it's yours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like they understand that?
Yeah, that's one thing I think I had a harder time with that because I don't think I thought I would be a lot better at teaching them hey, we got to count. Yeah, you work. They babysat, they did all those things. But then for some reason, there was when it came to oh, now go get an internship. I did all that stuff on my own. So I sought it out. I didn't have anybody help me. And I kind of wish I had more guidance. So then I tried to guide them and they were like, F you, sometimes. I mean, not totally, but, so I think, I don't think I did I think they have the same values. I don't feel like they're frivolous or anything, but I don't know if there's something, their lack of something. I think because Bill also, some of the stuff that maybe the dynamics that we had, right? Of he was gone so much and then he'd come back and be like, sure, let's get the new iPhone. I'm like, I just told them I couldn't have the new iPhone, and I think a lot of their friends had a lot, their friend groups certainly had more because we were in a different socioeconomic status than I grew up growing. But I think the same values are there, try to do the right thing, be nice to humans, education, vote. Helen didn't vote, but that type of stuff.
Okay. So then What do you look forward to in the next 10 years?
Well, I'm hoping for more calm. I'm looking forward to time with my kids, and seeing how they choose, what choices they make, and spending time with them as they make those choices. I look forward to time with, I really have amazing friends. I look forward to, growing up with those friends. I look forward to a little less worry maybe about the full career and just kind of working, finding something that's kind of fun or meaningful, and just enjoying, I do love pickleball. I love spending time with your, so I look forward to, I guess I look forward to, what I'm hoping for is just a little bit of flexibility with everything, like having a little, and not, I look forward to more, not focusing so much on other people.
Do you have any goals for your family as a whole as you continue aging?
I think just to state it, to just look out for one another. I don't think my goal is that everybody can be independent and doesn't have to have resentment for one another, and can be independent and feel like they are doing the best job that they can do.
Do you feel like you have a good support system, whether that's within your family or within your friends?
I have great friends. I'd say I have support with my girls. I think they're a big supporter of mine. And I have amazing friends. I'm really, really lucky. I think that is the big thing.
Okay, good. Anything else you feel like was big in your life, or something that kind of either hindered your development or helped? Or this is a developmental class, so if there's anything about your lifespan that seems important to mention, I'd love to hear it.
I think it's a balance of I think I have a lot of skills that a lot of actually girls don't have, because my dad was around more. Because my dad was more involved, I was, had like a fun little 2002, and I knew about cars, and I changed oil, and knew how to set this, I knew how to drive a stick shift. I drove a motorcycle. I tried all these things that I think were not girly. So I think that there's from a development standpoint, it's really not pigeonholing girls or boys or non-gender into one gender. I actually was also developmentally wanted to be I was tomboy. I wanted to be a boy when I was growing up. In play, I was always the boy. I always think about that as gender is an issue now, because I feel like I would have, I don't know. I wanted to be a boy until I was in 7th, 8th grade. And I think that might, developmentally, I needed to get my hormones before making those decisions. So I think that was one thing. But I think there's a balance, letting your kids have the freedom to skin their knee, maybe break a bone. You don't want them to, maybe a fender bender, but you don't want them to get hurt. There's a balance, and it's hard to know what that balance is, So I think developmentally, I know that because I was the youngest, I did all these things. I went to that Academy of the Rockies, and I did this Menlo College school. I took college courses in high school, and I was sent to all this stuff. So I think that actually gave me a lot of confidence. But sometimes I think I really just wanted to be a normal kid and not have to worry about everything,
Right.
So it's a balance.
Okay, that's cool to know. Okay, well, thank you so much. Did this feel weird having a talk about your life, or did it feel good or long?
No, I think it's fine. I mean, you know, of course I don't want to overshare with you, but I also know the work that you're doing, and I think it's important. I'm also like, I'm not really like, we all make mistakes, so I'm not like super apologetic about stuff. I'm pretty straightforward. But I also don't, you know, it's more about me. Like, it's not like I was like sharing things about my family members, you know what I mean? So I think if the questions were like, you know, how did you feel about your girl, or, you know, this or that, right? That might have been different, but just discussing, I don't really have any, I feel like life is not, I don't know, it's not regrets, you know, for me, it's more like, how to move forward when shit happens. But I also met this very pivotal point now where I have spent way too much time on other people, and it's like starting to drain me, you know? So, yeah. So that part is like maybe made me, I'm like talking to you about, I'm like, oh shit. That's like, God, I gotta get my shit together. Right. So, yeah. What about you? Was it weird hearing stuff from me?
I feel like you've told me like little tidbits about your life, but I think it's cool to hear like about how when I think of like me and your daughter, like we think we've like messed up or something, and it's just like all a journey.
It's a total journey.
And I think that's cool to kind of be reinforced with because I really admire your life, and so I think like that's something that I look forward to.
Yeah, you guys are great people, you know, and you're like looking at, I think, well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I also love that you just dared to be different and go